Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. The Disruptance Podcast is the show that disrupts the way entrepreneurs think to make them more profitable and impactful. Rethink tired and outdated business norms to welcome innovation and unlock your unlimited possibilities. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Greg Fowler.
Eric, my friend, we're back again for another episode of Disruptance, and today, got a special one.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like a normal standpoint when we're introing Disruptance, but this is really a special one. We're talking about AI.
Okay. I can spell that. That's one of the words I can spell, Greg.
It's hard for me.
Yeah.
It depends on the day. But artificial intelligence, right? I mean, it's something that has been talked about in 2023 immensely across business, entrepreneur, professional, how to use it, what it is, why it matters, where it's going. I really would love your perspective on this. You're a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
You utilize this in growing and scaling massive real estate business, team, and brokerage. But I think you're just massively passionate about it too, Eric. So I think that the audience is going to have a nice little roller coaster ride with you and me, my friend. So where do you want to start with AI? I guess.
Let's talk about what I'm most excited about, Greg. And what I'm most excited about is that with AI, you'll never have to write in cursive again. Okay. And that's the most important part, because whoever the hell invented cursive needs to step on a Lego at this point. Because is there a worse use case for human capacity and ingenuity than cursive? I mean, I was trying to write like Santa Claus the other day, or, for Hudson, and I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to write one of those R's and the S's. My F's and J's and K's, they all look the same. And so what's most exciting is that we're going to get rid of stupid human tricks and these silly traditions that have been passed down, like spelling.
Oh, yeah.
Your spelling, totally worthless. No one will do that in the future. Cursive, worthless. No one will do that in the future. Reading, worthless. We won't do that in the future. And those are the best parts of AI. And I say that, and then and math. And what's hilarious is when I say that those things will go away to people, is they usually look at me like I'm insane. They're like, I don't know. I think we're going to need to read in the future and be able to spell. And my answer is why?
Mm-mm.
Why would we need to read or spell when there's a computer in our pocket that is better at identifying things via sight, is better at spelling, better at enunciating, better at writing, and certainly better at reading most of the time, or certainly will be by the end of this year. And when you think about all the things that humans are great at, what we're not great at is doing memory-based tasks like spelling. I can't ever remember how to spell restaurant. I never remember, is it the U before the A? The A comes after the U. I don't know. And at this point, I've just given up giving a damn. And so I'm most excited for AI to resolve the stupid human problems that we've been passed down.
Eric, I know that there are so many people that are jumping into the comments of the chat right now, wherever you're at, tuning into this and loving that comment. I also charge everybody to spell entrepreneur. I think.
Yeah, can't ever spell that one either. No way. No.
That's a tough one right there.
Yeah.
But for the entrepreneur, for the real estate professional, Eric, I mean, again, going into the fundamentals of use cases and really taking advantage of this opportunity to lean into technology, not to be afraid of it. Because as you're saying these things, I'm sure that there's people that are sweating. They're perspiring to think, what is Eric talking about this? So
of course,
these machine learning capabilities are so much better than we are, then what are we doing here? What are we for?
Great question. And I have no doubt that Columbus would have asked the exact same question as he pulled out his compass and his map, and he navigated the East Indies, headed for America. Oops, we accidentally ended up in America, right? And so when you think about the advent of technology and how we've evolved and improved, no one goes, damn, I sure wish I was using a compass and reading moss on trees and navigating with a map. We go, oh my gosh, I can't imagine driving without GPS.
That's crazy.
And so when you realize that yes, technology has always adapted, evolved, and changed over time. We used to, use, I mean, steel was technology that was, alongside oil caused a significant revolution. We happen to call it the Industrial Revolution. That Industrial Revolution paved the way for most of the advances and innovation that we know and love and enjoy today. And this just happens to be the next step in the innovation cycle of human progress. And people will evolve and adapt the same way that we've done in the past. Just remember, Greg, there's an entire industry of people who love to pander doom porn because they have some agenda. And those that pedal to your fears are choosing to do so for a reason. And there are very few actors who have nothing to sell you who like to cause panic. Most of those who like to rile up the masses choose to do so for a personal benefit. And if you don't believe me, just realize that those who were bootlegging alcohol were also advocating for prohibition. And so if you think about it, if you already knew how to make liquor and you were selling and distributing liquor, you sure would. The best thing for your liquor business would be is to cause other people to not be able to get into the liquor business. It would make sense for then there to be prohibition. And so I say all of that because it's interesting for the audience to understand there is a negative component that's really loud that says this is going to be the collapse of society. And then there's the people in the spectrum like me who say this unlocks and democratizes intelligence, similarly to some of the best advances and innovations we've had in human history. And no differently than how Elon Musk unlocked freedom of speech for the Twitter platform, AI does the same thing for intelligence.
Wow.
Most of which is most people actually, oddly enough, have not experienced the democratization of intelligence with AI yet, and it'll become more and more prominent as obviously the technology evolves.
But I love the explanation of that, Eric, and it's not because you're just a wildly positive, optimistic guy. Is that you're mentioning these things? I love that you're really looking at it from a truthful standpoint. There are negative and positive ways to look at things, and the unlocking of the potential opportunities for people, it's massive, and it is truly endless. And you're absolutely right. The fear mongering and just the negative headlines that you see. I mean, people turn this headline into a negative. I actually think it's a positive. You might disagree. The fully automated McDonald's, right? Not a single soul in there. It's all machine. Yeah. And that made me really happy. And here's why. And I don't want any of the hate in the comments into this. I'm not saying that entry level jobs should go away, but Eric, you and I talk about McDonald's from time to time on this
QPC. That's right. Yep.
I literally just had they're coming out with the what is it, the double Big Mac, as if we needed a double Big Mac in this country, but we're getting it anyway. I had one the other day. It was really great, but most of the time when I go to any fast food chain, the customer service is miserable. No one wants to be there. The attitudes are horrible. I mean, this is every case in case you can find somebody that isn't this way. But when I heard and I saw that there is a McDonald's that is fully automated, I thought to myself, wow, that's nice. I can drive through and keep my positive attitude and happy-go-lucky kind of guy and get my food and be happy and not have somebody come into my life and feel miserable because I'm there to purchase a cheeseburger. And
you live in Boston, so it's like people just walk around miserable, right?
There's a lot of negativity. There's some happy people too. It depends on where you go, but it's true. It's so sad to the reality. So I think that again, people see these articles and they, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're changing all these things. For me, at the end of the day, I agree with what you're saying. I think that you're looking at it from a standpoint is the ones that are going to be successful into the future now, but also carrying on, are the ones that are going to be latching on to these technologies and enhancing what they're doing, letting the machine and or the AI, as it were, do what it does better than most of what we can do. and then attach the things that we're great at and come together as one. But I want to get your perspective, because I mean, people want to tune in and say takeaways or tools or thoughts to how to grow and scale business. Eric, and again, you've done this in so many facets and forms. So where do you want to take this? Where do you want to go with that?
Well, it's interesting. I just so happened to be looking at some research the other day, unrelated to this conversation, but people are terrible at predicting the future. It's actually a human ability that we're terrible at forecasting what the future will be like. In fact, Vanguard, they did a research study over the course of multi-decades, and they found that the ability to forecast future economics was so terrible through both economists and through metrics that rainfall actually had a better accuracy for rate of return on the U.S. economy than economists did, and then did like PE ratios or stock multiples or annual revenue. So whenever the economists tell you what next year is going to be like, or whether this is a good investment or a bad investment, you should just decide to flip a coin or turn off the TV, because you'd have better odds by choosing not to follow the predictions of the population. Don't forget, Greg, that it was the 1970s where most scientists believed that that the population was growing so fast that we were going to have this mass starvation and hunger crisis on the globe by the mid to late 80s. In a very best case scenario, humanity was going to be wiped out in large tens of millions of populations as a byproduct of a lack of food and a lack of resources, because we had too many people on the planet.
Wow.
And last I checked, there's actually never been more calories available than any other time in human history across the entire globe. And the reason why is progress and innovation. Okay. And so I think about AI and I just go, great. Well, how then do we utilize AI? It first starts with a mindset. I have to accept first that I'm actually utilizing that as a resource to benefit myself, to benefit the business, to benefit the consumer, and to leverage artificial intelligence like I would human intelligence. And if I don't start first with the mindset around AI, then I won't adopt the behavior. And so the mindset I have to then come to terms with is, what would I ask the smartest person I can think of, or the smartest expert that I could think of, if I was going to ask them any question and my search history wasn't going to be on the internet? And I could ask them, why do I have bad breath? Why does my child talk back to me? How do I get them to go to sleep earlier? I could ask any question that I want, similar to Google, where most of us get in the habit of going to Google and potentially asking those questions. And what we get back from Google, though, is we get this like generic response. Right? And then you have to go it narrows down what websites you might want to go look at, but you have to peruse through each website hoping to find the answer that you're actually looking for.
Right.
Whereas with artificial intelligence, if you were asking your dentist about how to cure your halitosis, the dentist would know precisely how to give you the response you were looking for because of intelligence. It wouldn't give you a broad answer like Google. It would give you a narrow, specific response that's in alignment with what answer you're looking for. So AI works no different. If you would ask an attorney to advise you on creating a will or an estate, helping you write an amendment, helping you look for issues with a contract, then you would ask AI to do the exact same thing. And so it's the mindset that people start with first, of coming to terms with how they can utilize AI. Because if you don't adopt that mindset, you'll never adopt the behavior to utilize it in your day-to-day. The biggest thing that holds people back with leveraging the technology is not knowing how to think about it and therefore how to utilize it.
But the way that you mentioned that mindset shift or struggle, I mean, that's been happening time and time again with business and professionals and anything along those lines. I've had that struggle my entire career with digital marketing, social media, any aspects of that. It's wrapping your mind around building a brand and connecting in a digital space. And It's just such a bizarre thing. And the ones who get it. And the ones that don't, unfortunately, I feel they get left behind. And there's nothing in my mind that's different than what you're saying, into the forward casting of the business, from any standpoint that way, Eric. So that's a really good point. So mindset first. So, all right, let's say that the audience member who's tuning into this right now, I'm like, all right, Eric, I'll bite. My mindset is now shifted.
Okay, perfect.
And I
now we're getting to
I feel like I need this, and I believe that
Yes.
I need to harness this power that you're mentioning. Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I have to come to terms with is that AI is something that was, really created. At least the thought process of it, or the hypothesis of AI is a nearly 60-plus-year-old work in progress. It's become wildly prominent as a byproduct of the improvements in large language models. And when you think about language, here's the interesting thing about language, Greg, is that most of us, if I said cat in the
hat,
most people would say cat in the hat, right? You could say cat in the litter box, cat in the, you could fill it. I could have gone with a lot of additional words that might have also been appropriate. However, the highest probability that when someone says cat in the hat is the most probable next word in the typical language for Americans. And so what we realize is the same exercise you and I did, which is you filled in the word that was missing in the language by realizing that our language has patterns. It's identifying those patterns and then predicting the most probable response or the most probable result in the pattern that caused this breakthrough innovation in the last 12 to 14 months. And so what we've seen is the fastest growing app or the fastest growing software in history, which was ChatGPT. And ChatGPT was really nothing more than a word prediction machine. If you think about it that way, it was a word predictor.
Okay.
And what I mean, and yet it does so much more. Because when you have the ability to predict words, and then you have the ability to string together sentences, and then we have the ability to string together paragraphs. And so ChatGPT became what amounts to be like a ghostwriter, plus Google for one application, where you as a listener could type into a browser a question in your natural language pattern. And you no longer had to format a question for Google. You no longer had to try to ask it precisely the way that you wanted it to in order to get the most likely outcome. You could speak the same way that you would to another human and get a human-like response back as a byproduct of predictable word probability. And so ChatGPT is easily the most common and most used platform. And that would be my recommendation for how someone would just start to get used to utilizing the product. Okay. It's free, but you should spend the $20. It's the best $20 you'll ever spend every month. Cancel your Netflix subscription if you don't have $20. It's not nearly as worthwhile and valuable as ChatGPT is. If you're down to your last $20, that's how I would spend my last $20. And
it's not the double Big Mac. We're
talking. No, it's not. No. And so ChatGPT is the most commonly used platform. Now, you could also use like Bing or Copilot, also have the same exact technology in them and could be used for free, but the resources available through the $20 a month are far better for ChatGPT.
Any opinion or perspective on Bard?
I have not used it well enough. I've not used it enough. And when I have used it, there's a few things that Google's done that I don't love. And I'm typically a Google fanboy. I hate to admit this, and I hate this as public. But
Are you going to do that right now, Eric?
I just got an iPhone, Greg, and
you did. No. Everyone knows now.
And it pains me. I'd been a Googler for my life, and yet I caved. And one of the things I don't like is for most of our listeners, the ability to get benefit from Bard is limited because it doesn't work with a business account.
Got it.
And so I don't want to log in and log out of multiple browsers and multiple apps in order to log into some gangster account that I don't use just so that I can use an AI when there's 3 competitors that don't require me to jump through hoops and do 3 songs and dance in order to get the same damn outcome. So it's a great reminder of how you think about the business and the friction around behavior.
Wow.
And also thinking around how it drives adoption or not.
That's a huge example.
Google has better data, and it also would integrate into like Gmail and your Drive and your Docs. And so you could capture better information from YouTube, Google Flights. The ability to harness Google Bard is actually probably has a higher upside. The issue why the adoption is a challenge is because they add extra layers of friction that are avoidable just by using their competitors.
Yep. And it happens every day. We're not talking about AI here. We're talking about everything, in which that was a beautiful example that you gave there. So Eric, when you're talking about this and into a deeper dive, and there's going to be all different learning variations that are inside here and use cases if they've already been involved with ChatGPT or utilizing AI, or if they're brand new, this is their first engagement with it because they saw your face and they thought, oh, I want to learn from this guy about AI. So now they're learning in for the first time about it. What are your thought processes and recommendations as an entrepreneur or a real estate professional to use that specific technology? Any thoughts into that? Breaking it down?
Yeah. So when I think about business and how to leverage AI, there's a lot of different ways to think through it. And I'm a fan, as you know, of thinking about the first principles component of things and reasoning up. And when I think about business, I look at it and say, okay, well, what is business? Well, business at the end of the day is nothing more than a group of talented people working with systems and processes consistently to drive predictable, desirable results. And so I've got talented people. I've got the best systems, the best processes to work consistently to cause predictable, desirable results. Well, I bet I could craft better systems and processes if I had better tools and better resources to cause myself to have the best system, to have the best processes and the best systems.
Gotcha.
So if I had the most intelligent, no one has ever said to me, you know what, my business is not doing well because my people are so damn talented and so smart and they work so hard so many days that God, we're just unsuccessful because my people are way too talented and way too consistent, and they're just they work way too much, and so we're just not working. We're just not having any success.
Said no one ever,
right? And so what people say instead is, man, if I just had a few more people who was really intelligent, who had a good attitude, who showed up consistently and predictably, I think I could achieve my goals and my desires. And then all of a sudden, within the past 12 months, especially more so within the past 6 months and incrementally more and more every day, that's becoming more realized. So as a business owner, when you then realize that a business revolves around processes, systems, talented people for predictable outcomes, I as a business owner would then audit what systems and processes, if I improve them, would cause the biggest incremental increase in desired results. And then I would start there. I would realize that business is only a few components, which is I've got to get customers. So I have to sell something, I have to service something, and then I've got to service, I've got people, and I've got finances. And for the most part, it's really about it.
Yeah.
Now we can go up from there, or we can get more hyper-focused with departments. But I've got people, I've got sales, I've got finances, and I've got service of the product itself. Let's say I want to look at sales.
Sure.
I want to improve my sales. Well, we just happen to be celebrating Martin Luther King Day in a couple days, or when this episode drops, it will have been within the last couple days. Here's what we know about Martin Luther King. Is one of the reasons we celebrate Martin Luther King is because he had a great cause, obviously, that he rallied people around, and that's worth championing and celebrating. But he wasn't the first one to take up that a goal and an initiative and rally people around the cause of equality.
Mm-hmm.
He was, however, the best orator, the best storyteller, the best writer, the best enroller and motivator and inspirer with his words.
Yeah, well said.
Therefore, he got people to walk or show up in a city and a state that may have been tens of thousands or may have been thousands of miles from their home to rally around that unified cause around equality. And so we know that words are incredibly powerful when we structure them in a specific order to cause people to be compelled to action.
Sure.
And so if I'm thinking about my business, I'm going to take the Martin Luther King approach. I'm going to rewrite my sales copy in a way that, or at least I'm going to audit it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to audit it, and then I'm going to rewrite my sales copy to convey a message that compels more effectively than what it might be written today. Wow. And so one of the things, I'll give you an example. In real estate, what I might do is I just happen to know that 64% of transactions happen with boomers. And so if I knew that boomers were the largest majority of the population that's buying or selling real estate, and I was willing to work with Betty and Claude to help them move down to Naples, Florida, so they could play tennis and drive their golf court around the community, then it might make sense that my website, my messaging, my emails, my text messages, and my sales copy spoke to the goals, the fears, and the desires of Betty and Claude, so that I could work with them to help them move to Naples, Florida, so that they could play shuffleboard and they could do speed dating or whatever they do in the clubhouse down in Naples. Okay. So I'm going to audit my campaigns so that I message to the things that matter to the demographic that I'm talking to.
Wow.
You're going to have a hard time selling me pregnancy pants, no matter how good your copy is. And that's because if we don't match our message to the market, we don't get product market fit. And it's been challenging to get product market fit with message until the past 12 months, because most people aren't even clear on what their market is. Mm-hmm. And once they get clear on what their market is, I mean, this is your entire job, Greg, right? Like the bulk of what you spend your time on is helping people get product market fit around their message. Mm-hmm. And then the hardest part is once they identify what their target market is crafting the message.
Correct.
Well, AI allows the improvement or the iteration on improving the message once people know who their target market is. Mm-hmm. It just so happens I know that Betty and Claude, they have like the same fears typically about moving. They have the same desires and they have the same wants. All my copy, and you tell me if I'm wrong, you do this for a living, all my copy should speak to those items. Mm-hmm. Because Betty and Claude, when they get their mailbox, because of course they're not getting email, unless they got that AOL CD, when they go check their mail and they get my letter, they're going to go, this agent understands me. Mm-hmm. This salesperson knows my problem as well as I do. Creates confidence and trust.
Well, but the way that you mentioned that, Eric, it was spot on. And it doesn't matter what demographic it is. You mentioned your favorite generation, the boomers. And I think that ultimately, regardless of what your client avatar is or your target audience is, you really need to know who they are and what they're going through and really kind of what drives and motivates them, where they are in their evolutionary state and stage to buy or sell a property through that. And it does come down to messaging and in turn, positioning yourself a certain way, whether it's digitally or physically, is crucially important. It always has been and it always will be. But to the AI metric here, I don't care what marketing individual is listening to this right now or watching this, you are not better than AI. I'm just going to tell you that flat out. It's one of those things that And I've never been a man of the written word. I am not a
Yeah,
poet among poets. For me, this was a blessing. I mean, it just made things for copy, text, so compelling and so spot on. I mean, you have to give directives, you have to understand your target audiences, but
yeah,
once you do, let the AI work its magic. And I think when you're talking about email campaigns, text campaigns, when you're talking about scripting, if you're, making sales calls and different verbiage that you're going to use, organic content that's going out on social media platforms, paid advertising that's going out into any digital or physical variation. Uh, AI can write all that for you
absolutely,
better than you're going to write it. So
absolutely.
I love that you mentioned that, Eric. That was huge.
The only thing I found that AI doesn't write well is hooks. I still think that if you're intentional about it, that as a human, you can write a better hook. However, I think that AI can give you better ideas about things that you could write a hook for. So I find it's really great with creating brainstorming or fixing writer's block, especially.
Mhm.
And then it typically takes some refinement, but
Right.
that's only maybe if you're trying to be anal retentive like me, and not everyone actually. The truth of it is it's probably not necessary.
Yeah. For most people, it's not. I feel that every time I look at it, it gets you 90+% of the way there. And I
Yeah,
feel that most people don't care about the other 10%.
yeah,
If you do, then you're still, the majority of the work is done for you. It's kind of my
mhm,
whole thought.
yeah,
And not only just for the sake of the work itself, but the capabilities and understanding of what words to use and how to use them. For me, it's just massively effective for so many different aspects. So I love that. And you mentioned it's free. Getting the $20 a month sort of scenario. And who knows, whenever you tune into this or watch this, it might have gone up from there. There might be something completely different.
yeah.
Depending on when you're tuning into this. But as of right now, that's what we're looking at. This is really cool.
Mhm.
What?
So
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
go for it.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, what are your next thoughts kind of moving forward down the line here? So we've
Yeah.
identified the mindset, sort of utilization of what's going on with AI. What other thoughts, or tools, or processes are you
Mhm.
seeing out there that are being effective? What else does the audience need to know about AI?
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing: is if you looked at what all tools I use AI wise, it's disgusting, and I mean, it's into the dozens probably, Greg,
Good.
and so it's pretty unreasonable. It's not that I recommend that to people.
Mhm.
The reality is, you could probably get 90 to 95% of the same results with 3 products
Mhm.
that I might get from 23 products or 30 products. Truthfully, just remember, my job is to stay current on innovation and technology and apply those learnings and that research and that adoption to other businesses. So part of why I use an obnoxious amount of tech is because I get paid to use an obnoxious amount of tech,
Mhm.
and so it doesn't mean that you should. If I was then thinking about how do I utilize the next layer of content
Mhm.
or the next layer of AI in order to drive my business forward, what I would do, I think, next is I would take those 4 domains I talked about, right? Is like the sales, the people,
Mhm.
the service, and the financial part of it, and I would start to have strategic conversations with AI about, or in this case with ChatGPT, about those realms of my business.
Mhm.
So a good adage would be is most CEOs and entrepreneurs would be they'd be advised to leave an hour or 30 minutes of white space on their calendar very regularly
Mhm.
so that they can ideate, so they can iterate and think of ways to solve problems
Mhm.
and create business propelling solutions.
Mhm.
And what you can do is you could take that white space time and you can choose to continue to white space by yourself, or you could white space with AI.
Mhm.
And you could white space with AI to try to solve some of the challenges that you have in your business. And I'll tell you, I mean, I spent about 13 days in a row and an obnoxious amount of time on those over those 13 days,
Mhm.
making an economic change within the business
Wow.
that was millions of dollars worth of change
Mhm.
to the positive. And I didn't know at all what the solution was, nor did I have any idea what direction I wanted to go before, at the end of those 13 days, actually arriving at what I think was the best outcome.
Wow.
But I went in with no idea of what the solution to the problem was. And for 13 days, I just had dialogue to try to solve the problem to the tune of a few $1 million. And I don't know if I would have gotten there if it weren't for solving a financial problem that would have been significantly impactful. I don't know if I could have done that without utilizing a neutral third party with an obnoxious amount of intelligence and patience that works 24/7.
Wow. But as you're mentioning that, though, Eric, again, just breaking down those aspects of your business, and then everybody should be doing these exercises to really see what comes from it and apply what you're learning that makes sense for you. But for your 13 days, when you're talking about seven figures, multiple seven figures, that's huge. That's worth some time being spent. And we're not telling everybody to spend 13 days like Eric's doing, just solely in a row, but ultimately looking and evaluating using.
But would you spend 13 days? Would you spend 13 days if you were afraid you were going to lose a few $1 million?
Oh, sure you would.
You'd right. What I mean? Like, that's the interesting thing about it is you shouldn't necessarily spend that much time on it. Don't get me wrong. However, if you only had one major problem to solve, or if you had one problem that would cause you to have significant cascading problems if you didn't solve the one cause, this is the greatest thing for your business in history. Because what you would have had to do in the past, Greg, you'd have to hire a 6-figure coach or consultant who had been there, done that, lived that experience, or seen enough businesses to be able to advise you with the correct solution, and then a concentric view of the problem to know all components and aspects of how to solve the problem. And most of us wouldn't even know where to start to hire that person or to get that consulting.
You know what blows me away, and you know me, Eric, I'm a movie buff or nut, whatever you call it. And there's a movie called The Accountant with Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
And really interesting, as you mentioned, they had to bring this individual on to find a hole in their books, if you will. There was a substantial amount of money that was missing, and it took this genius to find where those holes were. And as you mentioned that, I'm thinking to myself, AI probably could have figured that out a lot faster than Ben Affleck in this movie. And it blows me away. And it's just, there's so much truth to the reality of that situation to help you grow and scale your business. The amount of help and service that's there with technology is never been this way before. It's just huge. I look at this as all positive thoughts into opportunity for entrepreneurs and real estate professionals to really dive deep into this and help in so many different facets. So yeah, really interesting to say the least.
Yeah. And so if I go through this exercise, right, I'd be going through this kind of strategic thought of improving and white spacing and ideating those. And then once I've gotten through the sales and rewriting messaging, if that's an area to improve, I would also then be documenting. I'd be using AI to help to streamline my processes and create standard operating procedure guides and having and getting everything that's inside of the business that's boring and most of us don't want to do, but I document my way and why my way is different than every other business's way of doing things. So I would take the Colonel Sanders approach and I would document the 11 herbs and spices that make it the Colonel's recipe, not like the fried chicken at your local Kroger that's been sitting under the red lights for the last 2 days. I would document, right? I would document the 11 herbs and spices of my business. I would get all of the operational items inside of the company, clear, concise, and in a way that could be handed off in case someone's hit by a bus or hits the jackpot. Wow. And so I would get really clear on documenting those as well after I've ideated any potential solutions so that my operations manuals are all up to date and they're all fully functional for the ability to work systems and processes consistently. Then next, what I'm going to think about is what are the ways that I'm utilizing my time that I'm using someone's time
Mm-hmm.
that could be replaced by someone intelligent
Mm-hmm.
or by something intelligent.
Oof.
So I'll give you an example.
Beautiful.
Is I don't have to be in every single meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we get invited to meetings so that someone can communicate an initiative, communicate progress, or they can whiteboard and they can brainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're just communicating progress or they're communicating updates and status reports, I don't actually need to be in that meeting. Maybe only two people need to be in the meeting, and I can send AI to go transcribe and create summaries and action items and next step agendas and workflows based on what's discussed in the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can send what amounts to be a note taker to observe and listen to and transcribe the dialogue of the meeting, I can then convert it into summaries and action plans, which means now I get my time back.
Oof.
Or I get my money back if I'm an employer paying people to attend meetings that I no longer have to send the entire team or company to attend the meeting.
And I have been on the receiving end of some of those meetings with AI, Eric. And personally, I like it. It doesn't bother me
Yes.
at all. And I completely understand it. And I know that you and I have had these conversations about time and revenue that's attached to time. And, it's that adage. It's some of these meetings and real estate professionals, entrepreneurs, and, team leads, managing brokers. I mean, some of these meetings are for the sake of having meetings. And what are you doing there? And think about it. If you're looking at your time value versus the dollar amount per hour per those individuals that are in that particular meeting, and then you take an equation and say, okay, if there's X amount of people here for an hour, how much time did that meeting really cost? And is that actual cost that we're spending of time evaluating to a return on that investment of time? Most of the time it's not. And,
of course not.
And so the way that you mentioned that, it's not, oh, Eric's too busy for these meetings. It's not that at all. There's a higher and best use of time and what can be affected. You had mentioned whiteboarding time. I wish more business owners, entrepreneurs, business professionals gave themselves that time, because I feel that they're always just putting out fires and moving from one thing to the next. They don't take the time to work on their business. They're only working in it. And this is really, really positive advice. And again, listening to what Eric says, you can use AI to your advantage for a lot of these instances. This is really great stuff.
Well, not only are meetings a waste of time, but Alexander Graham Bell and whoever invented cursive and email, they all need to step on Legos and get polio, because email is also a giant waste of time too, Greg.
Well said.
And so one of the things is utilizing. I think of it this way: is if you could outsource work and I'm not picking on this, but this is the sexy thing for entrepreneurs, is if I can outsource it to the Philippines, I can probably outsource it to AI.
Very good analogy.
Because that person is not physically performing work with me. They're doing knowledge work from afar. And if knowledge work can be done from afar, it's quite possible knowledge work can be done from afar today with AI. Now, what it doesn't mean is that you go out and you get rid of all your virtual partners from around the globe. In fact, we still have every single one of our virtual partners is still gainfully, happily employed. It's just that we're able to reshift and reshuffle their projects so that they're able to do higher dollar producing activities as well. Because I don't have to send them to a meeting. I don't have to have them work in inbox. I don't have to have them aggregate and collect data that can be automated and scraped from conversations or from phone calls or from emails. So I can use AI to do email management, email writing, and potentially even email responding if someone desires to. So in my instance, I have an email automation that reads my emails,
Okay.
then writes a TLDR because people don't know how to be brief with email. And so if there's a lengthy email, I'm probably not going to read it. So what I realized is that maybe I should just have AI read my email for me and then write a quick 2-sentence summary of the email, and then draft my response and reply to the email. So I then can go in, look at my drafts, and I can see, okay, this email from Greg says these assignment, these are the next steps, and this is what I've done, and happy holidays. Great. I can now move that one aside, or I can click send, and it's already drafted the happy holidays to you. Thanks for the update, Greg. So I'm getting back micro amounts of time, but what I'm really getting is I'm getting the drain on my decision making, because when I get 150 emails a day or 300 text messages, I have to think about responding to each one of those. And it's that thought that causes a reduction in the effectiveness of decisions.
But that's powerful into every aspect of life. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot at the time, but it all adds up. I think that's a really important note that you're mentioning. And so what do you use? Because you didn't mention that, Eric, but what exactly do you use to do those efficiencies inside your email?
Yeah, so I use Zapier for that.
Okay.
And so I use Zapier with OpenAI, or what amounts to be ChatGPT. They have an API, so they have the ability to connect OpenAI with your email.
Okay.
And then I have it configured that is basically, if it's from these people or from this address, or excluded if it has this keyword, or it's from these senders. And then I wrote, here's the response, here's my writing style. Read this, create a response and a reply in this writing style, and also give me a 2-word extreme TLDR summary of the email that you just read or the existing conversation based on the most recent response.
Okay.
And so instead of opening every email, I can then go into my draft folder, and I can go through the drafts and see if I need to actually read the email or respond to it.
Love it. Love it. And again, just for the audience, so Eric is very in tune to all the technologies. And again,
you know what's crazy is I actually didn't know shit about doing any of that, Greg, until I've tried to implement that for so long. And here's how this works for me, which is, if I have a problem consistently, if I'm walking and there's a rock in my shoe, I'll probably try to readjust my shoe a little bit. And then eventually I'm going to go, damn it, there's a rock in my shoe. I bet I could pull over and stop walking with this rock in my shoe. And that's the thought process around business as well, which is like, hey, I'm getting a shit ton of emails and I can't manage them, and this is a waste of my time. Right. There are a few ways to solve it: with people, with money, or I could just ignore it entirely. Right. I could delegate it or delete it. But if given the option of automating it, that would be even better than delegating or deleting. And so I just look at it and go, well, this is a problem, and I don't know who to ask to solve it. So funny enough, I ask AI, could I automate responses to my email? Tell me how to automate replies and drafts to my email. I got the answer from AI. I implement the solution based on the answer. There we go. And that's what's interesting is that, think about that. I have now at a CTO in my pocket. For $20 a month. I have a chief technology officer where I say, I have this problem. Can you help me create solutions for this problem? And here's how it would be best if it was solved this way. You know, the other day I was watching Lauren on the couch. She was writing an offer, and I thought, and it was like, Hudson had just gone to bed, and it was like 9:00, typical realtor move. Realtors work at like the most insane locations at the most insane hours of the day. And she's writing an offer, and it's like 9:30 on a couch. And I don't know why, I just was like, man, I bet she would rather be doing anything than that.
Mm-hmm.
I bet she's grateful that she's helping someone buy a house, but I bet she'd rather be doing something else.
For sure.
And I thought that process takes me forever to do, is to go through the tedious line by line of making sure the contract terms are correct. Mm. But you know what doesn't take me long to do is to talk. And so what if I could just click a button on my phone and start a voice conversation? Hey, do you have the ability to tell me how to write a purchase agreement and create a contract?
Absolutely, I can help with that. Writing a purchase agreement and creating a contract involves several key steps.
And so what I came to the realization, Greg, is I bet I should just ask AI how to solve that problem by just observing a point of friction. Mm-hmm. And then it was, well, you know what's easier than typing or texting is speaking. Mm-hmm. So how do I move my phone from two thumbs to voice, mm-hmm. by replacing Siri and by replacing a number of the analog antique actions on a phone that we do? Mm-hmm. How do I replace them by combining voice and AI and then automating desired actions and corresponding automations in order to make life easier? Because that's the goal of technology. The goal of technology is to make your life easier so you can do more of the things that you want to do.
Right.
And so it's an observation framework first.
Well, and I agree with that thought process too. So many people, once again, if they're not in the right mindset, as you identified at the very beginning of this episode, it's not going to work for you. I mean, you need to understand that this is helping you, not hurting you. And if it's overly complicated or cumbersome, it's not the right thing. Either that, or you just need to get a little bit more education on the idea, ask AI. I would not say that if you're having trouble implementing or you decide after listening to this that you should go step on Legos. That's kind of the reoccurring thing.
No,
and actually,
you should definitely step on Legos if you're thinking about sending more emails.
There you go.
Sure.
Definitely do it. Well, and there's this rare image of a shark stepping on a Lego. I don't know if you've seen this.
Ooh, no.
Yeah,
but that's what it would look like.
Very rare image of a shark stepping on a Lego.
Even a shark can't survive an attack from a Lego, a spare Lego.
It's a serious thing. I don't know why it wasn't implemented in Home Alone. I mean, there was Hot Wheels, there was glass ornaments, but no Legos. Right. I think they missed something there. But so Eric, let's going down the line. What other thoughts? What other processes come into play? I mean, you're really identifying some key pillars to readjust, reevaluate, to help implement AI into business. Where do we go next?
Yeah, here's where you go. Is if you're not world class at it's no secret, right? My wife is far better at life and human and certainly at relationship than I am, right? Like, thankfully, I don't, she probably doesn't listen. So she hasn't figured out yet that she's way out of my league. And so, saying that here, she won't hear it. But she's also a better parent than I am. She's just better at everything at this point. And,
sure.
And so the interesting thing is that you can utilize AI to help you in both aspects. In fact, what I would say is some of the best in utilization is in your personal life, especially from a parenting standpoint. Mm-hmm. Give an example. This morning, Hudson still, despite the fact that Christmas was, 30 days ago or whatever, mm-hmm. we're still obsessed with Elf on a Shelf.
Oh, right? You guys are going long game with Elf on a
Shelf. No, we're not. But he is. Like he is settled in on Elf on the Shelf. He wants to know every day on Amazon if he can buy 38 Elf on the Shelves. Okay, and so every day he just wakes up and wants to see if the elf has come back or not. And and this morning the question was apparently there's a birthday Elf on the Shelf.
I didn't know this.
And I'm going to let your kids know. And so I learned this morning that there's an Elf on the Shelf, and because he told me. Yeah. And so then he started asking questions about the Elf on the Shelf, birthday Elf on the Shelf. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing: I don't know the answer to any of them, and I don't even know what story I'm supposed to go with, but AI does. Mm. And so I said, I don't know, buddy. That's a great question. Let's find out. Click the button. And now we're now jointly asking questions, and he finds it to be one of the most entertaining things to do.
Cool.
If he's in a bad mood or if he's upset about something, I'll pull out my phone and I'll, go, hey, will you roast Hudson or tell a joke about him or whatever it is? And usually try to lighten the conversation or find the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is he listens more to the robot than he listens to me, understandably.
I get it.
But I find it to be one of the better ways to utilize it is in your day-to-day as a parent and as a partner, is coming up with solutions to the silliest things that go on day to day. You want to narrate a space mission to Mars when your kids are jumping on a bounce house next week, Greg? Pull out your ChatGPT and ask for a script, and away you go.
There you go. One of the coolest things you said, parenting, Eric, and it just jumped right out at me. I mean, this was early into 2023 when we were having this conversation, but I still utilize it and to today. It's bedtime stories, and gosh, I'll tell you, Olivia and I have been on a lot of adventures with AI telling the story for bedtime. It's the coolest thing, man.
Yeah.
And to any mom or dad that's listening to this, if you haven't tried this, this is totally Eric. Just go in and go to ChatGPT and throw in the fact that, you're in the story and your daughter and or your son are there, maybe your spouse, and throw in some different scenarios and details and watch that story get written. It's the coolest thing. And their eyes just light up like, oh my gosh, so engaging, so much better than, and you mentioned Cat in the Hat, no disrespect to Dr. Seuss. I know there's a lot of people that are not fans of Dr. Seuss. I grew up on that, but this is way better than Dr. Seuss. This is like Eric and the family involved in the whole thing. It's really cool stuff for sure.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And so you just sit down and you think of what are all the imagination, creativity ways that you can bring some sort of unique perspective to both parenting and to business. But honestly, to that exact point, Greg, I think that the personal life applications to it are probably better even than the business applications. And those are the ones that matter more in the long run. And to that exact point is, if I were starting a business tomorrow, I would probably be doing something that was AI and parenting related.
Wow.
It's kind of a big market. I don't know if you know anyone who is a kid or has been a kid, but I think that that's a pretty large percentage of the population. And as a byproduct, if I'm thinking about product market fit, why would I have a static book anymore?
Wow.
If you could create your own stories every day with lessons that were specific to the lessons that you wanted to teach your children, and all you had to do was help enroll them on crafting that story, what a great way to both teach and to implement creativity.
Well, and I think it's a completely new way to learn. And you had mentioned, obviously education, and we're talking about children. I mean, it's already happening all around us. There are alternatives to traditional education and systems, and people are really working on this thing to get the most out of the human mind, and especially a young mind. So the application is insane to me. I mean, I look at it too from a utilization, and I can't help but nerding out on the digital marketing aspect of it, Eric. And you had talked about sales and the journey of kind of recrafting the message. I think that's important. And we talked about utilization for content creation, for obviously looking at it from how the organic or paid content might sound or look. But then I take it to the equation, kind of a big pinch point, if you will, is for video editing. So it's a massive thing, right? So you can get scripting for video through AI, best topics to go through for buyers, for sellers, for your market, whatever is happening inside there. But then you've actually got to take the time to shoot them. Now, whether it ends up being AI, who is the voice and the face, or you do into that sense, there's applications. But what I say is the editing process is tedious and time consuming and can be costly. So, some of the services that I like to use, no affiliation, no paid by any means, stretch the imagination. If you take a long form video that you might be shooting, and it might be a buyer guide that you send out to, particular potential clients in your demographic, maybe it's the boomers. that we've been talking about earlier, and that we're sending it to them very specifically. You might shoot 30 minutes or an hour just kind of brainstorming the top 5, top 10 questions you get asked by every single client. Well, instead of you manually editing that, with it ends up being, Final Cut Pro, or if it ends up being Adobe Premiere, you can drop that file into AI software, and it'll actually track the verbiage, the highest and best conversion for your message, and it'll chop it up into 30, 60, 90-second variations. And within a matter of minutes, you took an hour and now you have 30 clips. So people always are concerned about editing. That's massive that AI is now here. And I will tell you, I've worked with so many videographers, photographers, and editors across the United States. This has been, one, massively cost effective, two, extremely efficient for time, and three, more accurate for trend. What is actually converting to messaging to the target audience, and what get the best out of the message that you're giving. So again, there are other tools that are utilizing. I use Opus Clip, but there's GetMunch, there's Momento. There's so many different ones that do it. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that for video editing purposes. It's a game changer.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing is, as you look at image creation, you look at video creation. I mean, the list is long. I mean, calendaring. Shoot, just the other day we had a scratch off lottery ticket that I took a picture of and just said, "Did I win?" And the answer, of course, was hell no. And but it was one of those where if you jump on one leg and you rub your belly and you shout winner 7 times and you match the cherries a long ways across the top, then you might have won $250. I'm like, I can't even understand what this scratch off is, but AI had no problem figuring it out. I just took a picture and said, "Hey, is this scratch off a winner?"
Oh, wow.
And when you realize that it has the ability to look at photos and then create and then provide answers, that I think is the fascinating thing that will be the most disruptive, and why I started the conversation by saying cursive reading, spelling, and writing are a thing of the past, because what causes us to still have to read and write and spell is that there isn't a replacement option for it. However, we are fully aware that if you were sight challenged, or if you had lost your sight, that you would have come up with ways to create solutions for writing and for reading.
Sure.
And now the interesting thing is, when you realize that your camera can function as a far more effective set of eyes to do some rudimentary tasks, and you think about if you lost your sight, how do you know whether your milk is expired? And everyone's response is, well, you smell it. And you go, well, that's great, but the only reason you would smell it is because you couldn't read the date. But one of the biggest and first advances in AI is actually providing additional sight resources to those who are sight blind. And there are apps now, and there are both audio apps to help people with translation, with spelling, with sight, who in most of the senses, you potentially have the ability to get them back. There you go. This is one of the best advances, I think.
There we go.
That many people won't think of is ALS.
Okay.
Devastating disease, right? And what's awful about ALS is that most people lose their ability to speak, but retain their ability to think. And now imagine how awful it must be to want to communicate, to be able to think about communicating, and to have all your cognitive ability, but no ability to speak in a way in which you can communicate the thoughts that you have.
Wow.
With AI, you can now, if someone was diagnosed with ALS, and this is happening literally today, from a medical standpoint, is that you could record your voice, or you could, in this case, we've got plenty of, you've only done about 17,000 podcast episodes, Greg. So you could go into the archives of voices of Greg's podcast, pull out a 3-minute clip of Greg's voice, convert it into a AI generated voice clone. And that, as soon as now you wanted to communicate as someone who's been diagnosed with ALS, even if you've lost your voice, it could now be replaced with a clone copy of your voice so that you could communicate with loved ones, friends, relatives, and so on. And that's all within the last 6 months.
Wow.
We're going to see the best advancements and breakthroughs from a medical perspective in the next decade. And yet no one talks about those items. What we hear instead is all the doom and all the panic and all the fear mongering.
Yeah.
But remember, the greatest advancements of our lifetime will happen in the next decade and beyond. And the largest cause of that will be the advancements we see around AI and all the, I mean, just there are so many things we could do. 3 more podcast episodes on all of the new breakthroughs that have happened just through leveraging AI in the last 12 months that will change the trajectory of humanity.
Eric, I mean, and you hit a really good point. There's so much advancement that's happening, and it's just exponentially rapidly approaching every single day that we're doing in so many different variations and fields. And the core audience to these are entrepreneurs, real estate professionals. And again, the idea behind it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if you're not using AI, use it. If you're using it currently, figure out a better, more efficient way to use it for productivity, for time standpoints, whether it's for business or personal uses. The tools are there. There's no excuses. And I got to say this again, the ones that are just burying their heads in the sand thinking this is a fad, this is going to go away. It's business as usual. I don't have to change. You are sorely mistaken. It's just one of those things that you really want to get on board and implement it. And again, not to say that you're changing yourself into a robot or you're giving in to any aspect of that. But I think that this is from a positive place for growth and acceleration. And that's what we're looking at. And the whole idea, as Eric mentioned, disrupting the thoughts and the way that you think and perceive, that's really what it's all designed to do. And everything's here. But Eric, you crafted an incredible downloadable. And like there's so much to it. Like you said, we could have multiple episodes just on AI. But I would love to be able to, encourage everybody to download that.
Absolutely.
Really take a look.
Yeah, and all the images are AI generated too, Greg. So I mean, we're on brand here. So it is. Go download it at artificialagent.ai. Artificialagent.ai.
Love it. And do that. I mean, it's incredible downloadable. It's very impactful. And again, just the tactical takeaways that are there and use cases, it's massive. Eric, where do you want to wrap this up? Is there a question or a burning thought that you really want to get out there to the audience about AI?
It is. I think the interesting theme I've kind of been thinking of recently is this idea that the future is bright. In 2024, it's an election year, and let's be honest, the media sucks, and so they'll just be negative, of course. And the reality is that we're seeing what amounts to be the greatest technological and humanity breakthrough of our lifetime, and arguably since the third industrial revolution, when we came across steel and petroleum and all the use cases from plastics to all the books on that bookcase behind you. We're on this trajectory, refining and defining moment. And while the most voices will be negative and the narrative will be about red versus blue, Bloods versus Crips, the reality is that the future is bright. Humanity is as strong as it's ever been, and advancements continue to grow and improve the livelihood of people all over the globe. And so I couldn't be more optimistic and realistic about both the present time and the direction that things are going. And so as a listener, I just want to instill the fact that things have never been better, and they're only getting better every day.
I love that, as the note too, Eric. I mean, again, it's just there's so much gloom and doom and negativity, and you can focus on only so much. And I think ultimately people are here to be educated, entertained, and enlightened at the end of the day. And
there we go.
Speaking of that with markets, and you do an incredible, it's a live sort of scenario every Mondays. It's Market Mondays. I want to encourage everybody to show up to that. Eric drops incredible knowledge. If you are a real estate professional entrepreneur and you want to tune into that, very in depth. I find it to be very humorous in certain notes because Eric gets really opened up. If you like what you're seeing here, you're going to love what you're seeing inside there. We'll have information in the show notes as well, where you can kind of tune into that on Mondays. For sure, Eric. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. As always, my friend, another great episode of Disruptance on the books. This is a great one. Can't wait for the next one.